You are listening to the Nosy Dragon. I'm your dungeon master / innkeeper, Jessup. I am joined by my player / patron, Ben.
A good night to you.
In today's session, we talk all about gods and religions. This episode was made possible in part by Bearded Barrel Brewery. More about them a little later in the episode. Welcome, Ben. Welcome.
Good.
You look ready to drink.
Yeah. Do you have anything that deals well with guilt? Specifically drowning it.
Yeah, I mean most of what we got here does that.
Perfect. I'll take whatever is strongest.
I do have this special brew from a cleric who does brewing on the side. His name is Frown Smasher.
Oh. Wait, a cleric?
Supposed to be.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. See, the whole reason that I wanted is technically I have temple today. And we were going to be performing one of the ceremonies of the moon and I don't know. I'm avoiding it.
Yeah. For me, it's hard as a ancient gold dragon. A lot of the gods that are really popular these days, I mean, really, they weren't nobody like when I was a kid, and it's like really? Being almost as old as some of the popular gods, it just feels like I really want to worship this person. I mean,
yeah, I mean, from that perspective, it's. I mean, I can totally see that.
Yeah, and it's like, the popular god is constantly changing. Like Paylor, right, is doing pretty good, all things considered. He's got like a 63% worship conversion rate, which is pretty great.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But. Melora is starting to go up in the polls. She's gone up by 13% just in the past 2 years. And I feel like give it another 50, 60 years and the next generation's not even going to know who Paylor is. So what's the point of worshiping these gods?
I guess, yeah. I mean, Melora does have a pretty good program for, national parks and preservation and whatnot. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Paylor has a lot of like family. I
mean,
there's a reason that the people win his devotion. Or
people say that I'm a little, biased here, but I think Bahamut is really one of the greatest gods.
Really?
He's been around.
Well, I mean,
for almost ever.
That. Yeah. I can see how you could. I'm gonna go ahead and shut my mouth because I was about to say something a little bit dragonist there.
Hey man, I can take it. I've spent the past 230 years in this human form. Most of my time is spent in this human form. I mean, I do transform back into my dragon form every once in a while, but I've gotten used to. I feel like I have a sense of what it's like to.
I guess. But they're like. There are tapestries and, they have statues and everything, but have you ever actually seen Bahamut in person? Like, have you ever gone to, like, an actual
I went to Burning
worship?
Man, and he was there, just chilling. It was pretty cool. I mean, he was really relaxed.
Wow,
he was
no way.
so down to earth. I was really embarrassed because I was smoking some silver weed, and he was like, he didn't even notice. Like, he was just so...
Wow.
And it's like being the god of justice and nobility. You think that he'd be like all uptight and but he was pretty cool. He was pretty, he's like very like to the letter of the law and like all things for the greater good and all that. But like he was very, I don't know. I think that's like when he's at work, Yeah,
no, I'm sure there's like a hard line of separation there. Wow, man.
Well. Speaking of a hard line of separation, let's go ahead and get into the episode.
Yes.
Gods
it's about time.
And religions. Right. So I think I'd love to talk about incorporating gods and religions in a deeper way in your campaign. sometimes
Yeah.
gods and religions are something that like you acknowledge only in the way that when you say "Oh my God," instead you say "Oh my gods,"
Yeah.
and that's kind of the extent sometimes in a lot of D&D campaigns. But I
Yeah.
think that it is certainly something to look at.
Mm-hmm.
A god could be the center of a campaign, right? The
Sure.
primary quest giver, or even the big bad evil guy, the main villain of the campaign, right?
Whew, yeah. Oh my gosh. Gods. All of them. They yeah, I because D&D has this way of making the lines speaking of lines again, of like gods being real so clear. Like
Well, that's the
obviously,
thing. You don't have to play D&D that way.
yeah.
I've definitely played D&D where they use the Christian god thing. So it was just
Mhm.
the god, and then there was like Satan, who was like a demigod.
Oh, gotcha.
Um, and then Jesus was like a demigod and stuff, and that was like a thing. But
Huh.
everything else was just a regular D&D world. So like there was a bit of faith that really came into play, that was
Huh.
like whether you really believe or not. So I think it isn't D&D doesn't have to be gods are real and you can see them. I know,
Yeah.
I saw Bahamut at Burning Man. Like, but I think that's also a really fun thing to do. So either way, I think you can really have a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and add complexity and flavor, by fleshing out a pantheon,
Hmm.
or just having showing certain touches that are left by the gods.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was only saying that in order to imply that, like, whereas in real life, the kind of like faith is very like subjective, and it's
Mm,
no one, there's no concrete proof. In D&D
yeah.
there are at least rules as written. There's definitely the opportunity to have the gods be like real characters and figures that show up and produce the
Mm.
magics of the world. um
Yeah, very, very, very technically, most of the lore that's written about gods in D&D, the gods can never actually make it to the physical plane. They
mm,
can send avatars. They pilot the avatar, and for all intents and purposes, they are that being,
yeah.
right? So you cannot slay a god, traditionally speaking. You can kill their avatar, however, and it can take them a long time to create another avatar. Sometimes
Gotcha.
long enough that you may never see their avatar walk in your lifetime again, right?
Mm.
So it can feel like, oh, I killed that god. There is a way for gods to like die, like on the
Hmm.
astral plane or wherever they hang out, their demiplane of whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
uh
or, so
that's pretty late game though, if you're on your way to try and like kill a god.
yeah,
That's more like 19, 20 level, 26 level character,
yeah, but I think it's kind of like your D&D game, so you can have it like, oh yeah, our local priest has communed with the god Palor, and that's why he is a devout follower and works in the temple, right?
Yeah.
He was personally saved by Palor. um I mean, I think that kind of devalues the god a little. I think if you're going to have your god walking amongst the common folk, like on the planet, I think you should have it like, maybe that religion's pope has met with their god, and that's how he became the pope, right? The god will come down
I see.
whenever the old pope dies, and he will announce anoint another pope, kind of a thing. So I think, but it depends on the god, right? You could have like the god
Yeah.
of trickery is constantly messing around with mortals in physical form, right? Because
Yeah.
that's his whole bit. So you can have your gods as like kind of unawesome, like awesome in the biblical sense, like, like you can have them kind of very regular, kind of like Thor or Loki from the Marvel
Yeah,
movies.
just
Like,
like actually just strolling along doing their own
yeah,
thing in the
there's
world.
really nothing mythical. I mean, like a little mythical, but like there's really nothing all that to them. They're just they're more like famous people at that point than gods.
Yeah, for sure.
They definitely don't feel like gods. It's like, well,
Hmm.
they're immortal, but I mean, pretty sure Groot is immortal too. So
Oh, that's funny.
so I don't know. I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? So
Yeah.
I definitely have run a god in a campaign. He was the god of trickery. I think his name was Loki. I don't
Mm,
remember. I think I looked up. Loki has more than one name, so I think I used one of his other names.
gotcha.
And I did very much have him running around. In our little campaign, he had actually been tricked himself, um,
Remember,
and he had been turned into a pot of gold.
an
That
endless pot of
yeah,
gold.
and a bottomless pot of gold. Um, which yeah, I mean yeah. Anyway, there's so yeah, making a choice on whether your gods are very like visible, tangible, are they like clearly seen, are their impacts felt, like
Mm,
are there farmers who are like, oh no, I always make sure I do my, daily routine and donate my tribute on my altar to Melora because she takes care of my animals and my, because Melora is the goddess of the wilderness and the sea, and so he's like, no, no,
yeah.
no, you got to pay tribute, like because my crops get like a +3 bonus and resistance to insects. you know, like
Yeah. Anytime that I have to roll an agriculture check, I get that +3 because of the rituals that I do.
exactly. It's like when there's a drought, Melora will still have rain clouds come and rain just on my crops. Like there is no reason as a farmer not to worship her. Like I just couldn't. There's just no point in worshiping any other god,
Yeah.
right? Or a captain of a boat, right? Because Melora is the goddess of the wilderness and the sea. So it's like a god, a captain being like, oh no, yeah, all of my guys have to be devout Melora worshippers, and at the beginning of every voyage, we
Yeah.
all do a sacrifice. We sacrifice like a goat or whatever. Like we bring a bowl of fruit and we do the ritual, whatever it is, because like we need her blessing. But her blessing is a tangible thing. It's not like
Yeah.
they just do it because faith. It's like no, we do that blessing, and then like the boat literally moves faster. Like it's measurable. Like the ocean, it's like the waves don't crash on us as hard, or like there's literally clear seas for us. So there'll be like raging ocean all around us, and then kind of like a path of clear, flat water just guiding us through the storm,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So it's
like
like
it's clearly tangible and like
and so it's like, yeah, no, you have people who like, oh, I always gonna worship that god because her benefits are so seen and felt, and it's so impactful that it'd be absolutely foolish to do anything else,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, that's I mean I feel like that can be super fun for players as well to like have kind of that presence of the gods to them, and it can do a lot for a character's backstory. Like if you grew up, let's say, with a father, and you grew up sailing on a ship, then you already have that relationship with Melora, and so anytime that you're out with your adventuring party, even just like you can play it that just by habit you like take a bit of salt and like pour it into your mead or whatever it is you're drinking for the night to remind you of the sea, because that's
I gotta put the salt in my shoes. Hold on.
yeah, exactly. Like I think
Isn't that uncomfortable? Oh well.
it benefits me.
Makes me feel like I'm walking on the beach.
uh, they just always have sand in their shoes, no matter what. Like
Yeah.
they turn it over and it just keeps pouring sand.
God, I have to take the ocean with me.
Yeah.
I have
Precisely.
this pendant of ocean water and boots full of sand.
I got the charter.
Or yeah, like, or yeah, so like if you could go as far as like, oh yeah, you can see a worshiper of Melora, whether they worship the wilderness aspect or the sea aspect, right? I guess Palor is also the god of agriculture, right? You know,
Yeah.
farmers. Palor is the god of the sun and agriculture, so you could have like him like also, but like you know, like let's say you have like a druid who worships Melora, and he's like, yeah, I every you know week I'll take some vines, some living vines, and I will braid them into a crown, and I wear it, and it's like me doing that. You know, wild animals leave me alone, so like I can walk through the forest without having to worry about predators at all.
Yeah.
Um, or like you know and it's like very provable, like you put on that crown and he could like walk through you know a bunch of angry wolves and they just part around him like a boulder in a river,
Yeah, and then
you
go for
know.
everyone else not wearing
Yeah,
the crown.
exactly. So it's like if there are benefits like that, I think then you'd really see the impact
Yeah.
on the culture in the sense that like people will do these things because it's like, oh no no no, like this isn't no faith is required. Like you can feel the impact.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I feel like this plays a lot into like um when you're setting up your world. It's it's cool if you have certain gods be prevalent or more prevalent in certain areas, like
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
like exactly the matter of like if an area is very thickly wooded, then yeah, you're gonna have Melora be like the main god worshipped there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you move into like the grand city, maybe Arathis, the goddess of civilization and invention, maybe there are like statues of her all over the place, and like when creators are searching for like inspiration for their next invention, they like all of them have eureka moments when they perform a certain like thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just
A
like
breakthrough.
it's so clear that this particular civilization is that much more advanced because of Arathis' worship.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like yeah, the gnomes the gnome area, they all focus on making sure they do their Arathis rituals and it's like, you know, yeah, I just think it's interesting. I think also you can have, you know, the way you worship that god reflect more unique in a more unique way. Like a temple of Arathis might be a library, right? Because
Yeah.
she's the goddess of knowledge, right? And like she's like lawful neutral, civilization invention, right? So it's like
Yeah.
if you have her as yeah her temple is a library, it's a place of knowledge where knowledge gathers,
Hmm.
or a museum maybe, or you know I don't know, something like that, like something that it's all about cataloging, collecting, you know, sharing of information,
Yeah,
or
definitely.
it's a school, maybe a temple of you know Arathis is a school,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
and it's
definitely.
like oh yeah we do worship by studying her knowledge and her information, like our holy scripture is a textbook.
Mm. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
We
Oh my
speak
god.
the language bestowed upon us by our god,
Mm.
mathematic equations.
We speak to her in binary.
Yeah, right. So I think it's kind of so it's kind of how does the dogma of a god affect the mortal's behavior, right? So
Yeah.
something I wanted to really I thought about. So okay, let me wind it back. So I made a campaign and
Hmm.
I was talking to another dungeon master and I was just like, yeah, one of my ideas was you know the god of the sun, which I just made up a god. I made up the god's name was Aloris, and I was like Aloris, she's the god of the sun and the god of light and justice and you know
Hmm.
like all the holy and divine stuff. Like so rather than having like lots and lots of gods for my pantheon, I had like two big gods, like the god of night, the god of day, and they were kind of at war. And then there were like a few smaller gods that were underneath, but they were all like demigods. But those
Yeah.
two were the only two big gods, right? So the goddess of Loris, and I was like, yeah, like if you worship Aloris and you die well with daylight touching you, then yeah you will go to her heaven, right? Is if you had like pledged your I don't know, what is that called?
Allegiance.
I guess allegiance, but what
I
in like
guess
faith?
pledge your faith. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. Oh gosh, I can't
Devotion.
think of. I don't know. Whatever.
Your penance.
You joined that religion officially,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, you died in daylight, and this dungeon master was like, dude, that's gonna massively impact the culture. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like if someone is sick and they're gonna die soon, they would probably have like some sort of ritual sacrifice so they could kill themselves intentionally during the day to make sure that they went to their god's heaven. Because if there was a chance they could pass away at night with no daylight to touch them, then they would, that's like they go to hell, right? So it's
Yeah.
like,
Oh my God.
and I was like, oh yeah. He's like, so your temples for her should probably also have a place like an altar or something for self-sacrifice where like they can go like, hey, I
That's.
don't feel too well,
Oh my God.
can you kill me? And the pastor's like, yeah, no problem, I got you.
And that's that. I remember when we were like traveling through the main city in that world, and like there was like, and when you describe the buildings, like everything had as much glass as possible, or like
Yeah,
open planning designs. Like,
sunroofs.
yeah, exactly. And like when
Not sunroofs, what's it, what are those things called? Those big
um
windows on your ceiling.
um
Whatever, those things, you guys know
yeah,
what we're talking about.
I guess I've always just called them sunroofs.
I
Um,
think that's what they're called if they're in a car. It's a sunroof.
right. I can't think of it now.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
But just the fact that they were everywhere, and in the matter of night, when night came along, everything in the city pretty much stopped. Like everyone stayed in their houses. All the city streets were like totally lit up, like completely bright, and like people were deathly afraid to move out of the city.
Skylights.
Yeah, skylights. There we go. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
It just eats at you until you figure it out.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like the skylights, the super
Because people are
like
terrified of
streetlights.
going out at night because it's like, well, if I go out at night and something happens and I die, I just cannot allow for that to happen,
Yeah.
right? And so there was also that made metal incredibly expensive, and it's like, well, why would that make metal so expensive? And it's like, well, because people
You have to
do not
dig
want to work
in
in a
the
mine.
earth to get it.
Because how can we dig in a mine? And it's like, okay, well, the solution was we'll do a quarry, right? Where you dig out a massive, area, kind of like an inverse pyramid kind of shape,
Yeah.
conical, downward spiral. But that takes so much more effort than just finding a mine that's rich with iron and then mining out specifically the iron.
Yeah.
Instead, you have to mine out the entire mine, like
Yeah.
so
You have to burrow through the earth and like
exactly.
pull up mounds and tons of stone and dirt and rubble and like
So
non
quarry style mining is great for like marble or granite or whatever, but it is not very ideal for trying to get iron or gold or silver or you know copper, things like that.
Yeah.
So it drove up the cost of those kind of metals significantly, to the point that like places where Aloris was worshipped primarily, then it was like, yeah, like a lot of them didn't even have gold coins. There was like paper money and checks. Like people would write checks and banks
Yeah.
would transfer, you know, debt around and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
people got their wages in banks because it's like, well, I can't afford to carry around cash money because it's so rare. So I think that's kind of stuff, and it changes the architecture too, because it's like,
Absolutely.
well, we can't use steel beams or we can't use, rebar. I don't know what they used back in the day, but like, if metal can't be a part of the construction, then it
how do you
changes what
use
you
nails?
can make.
Like everything has to be like
It makes things more expensive and more labor intensive. You got to use wood nails and got to do wood glue and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that it's like, wow, one aspect of one religion massively changes the culture of an entire
Yeah.
society. And that's real in real life too. In the real world, that's true as well. It's
Mm,
like, um, there are little things that people believe that actually have large impact, like the
absolutely.
superstition of the 13th floor of a skyscraper being bad luck or cursed or something. A lot of buildings in New York,
Yeah.
either the 13th floor is completely vacant or the 13th floor is not numbered, that it's numbered 14.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
completely cut out, and something so superficial and like not based in
Yeah, you
scientific
can
measurable
find a
fact.
bank in New York City that doesn't
Yeah.
have a 13th floor, right? So it's like, there, imagine that, but if the gods were so tangible, that worshiping a certain god made your crop grow twice as fast, then it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, the culture is going to be so shaped by gods, that
Absolutely.
there's going to be almost no aspect of anybody's life that isn't touched by a god. Like, people might say a specific prayer before preparing a meal because that god will literally bless your food and make it taste better, like, automatically, like,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know
man. Mm.
or if you won't be able to cut yourself with a kitchen knife or something like that while you're cooking, or I don't know, like
Yeah.
little aspects, that would pop up in people's lives. So, you know you can go absolutely nuts trying to figure out
Completely.
how would something have a radiating effect through a culture, you know um
It's and that's part of the stuff that's so exciting as a player. Like I know when I was playing that campaign, finding more and more things out about those gods and how they were implemented into the culture was so interesting, and it made me as a player want to try and get involved with those gods myself. Maybe start like following certain practices. Maybe I would start like copying greetings that people would make to each other, like
yeah.
Aloris's light always touch you, or like uh, if you were the whole thing with Sil Noctis is like her. She also had this kind of like afterlife, which wasn't necessarily hell.
Noctis was the antithesis of Alora. So I didn't mention
Yes.
her. I'm just clarifying
Oh no, I thought
for
you
our
did
listeners.
mention.
I
Okay,
mentioned that there were two opposing gods, but I didn't
right.
actually mention
So
Noctis. Yeah,
the goddess of the moon, whose name
yeah.
was Silnoctis,
And
her
Alora's just the goddess of
afterlife,
the sun.
her whole afterlife was surrounded around wealth. And so when
Yeah,
people
I
died,
forgot about that.
no,
Yeah,
no, no, yeah, when people died, they would be like, they would have to die in darkness in order to be taken to her world. But if you were buried with your money, then that money would be transferred over into that afterlife.
yeah,
So, which
yeah.
kind of made like
But it was it
dungeons full
was
of
it was
treasure.
also like that treasure, you could actually take the money spiritually, you could reach into your coffin and physically bring funds from there, right?
Yeah,
So because of that, if someone robbed your grave, then you would lose all your wealth in the spiritual and in the material that you hadn't already been able to reinvest or spend in the spiritual.
yeah,
So it meant that people put up all kinds of defense mechanisms to protect their buried wealth, right?
yeah,
The same way the Egyptians did, like with these just way too many booby traps. Like, something the Egyptians would do is they build a tomb,
mm-hmm.
right? An area for their coffin to go. Their, can't remember what they're called, sarcophagus or whatever, the big thing.
Yeah,
They build a fake one, right? So you'd break into the tomb and you'd find the main chamber where the sarcophagus is supposed to be, and it would look ransacked already. And so then people would go,
wow.
ah, darn, someone got here before me. But just on the other side of the wall is the real tomb. And there's no visible entrance or anything,
Yeah, they'd have it.
because there's they don't want you to enter it. So I find that so fascinating, and it's like, well, why would you go through so much effort? And it's like, well, if you believe that you're going to literally take these things with you, and if someone breaks into your grave and takes them from you, then, like, they're taking them from you in the spiritual as well,
Yeah. Of
right?
course, you want to defend that. And I love that explanation for dungeons because like normally dungeons don't really make sense. Like
Yeah,
why would you go to all this trouble to bury your wealth?
booby
Like
traps
booby
and
traps everywhere.
monsters
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly. It's so
Yeah,
funny, but like that gave it a really kind of
yeah.
solid
It
explanation.
suddenly it makes so much sense why a wizard would go through all the trouble to create a mimic. You know, the mimics are not
Yeah.
naturally occurring creatures. I
They're
mean,
monstrosities, right?
yeah, they were created specifically by a wizard for a particular purpose.
Mm.
And then some of them, I think, when he died, eventually they like got out and started reproducing on their own and
Wow.
became a thing. But
Mm.
yeah, they were they were, you know, bespoke dungeon protection. Um,
And they did their jobs.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So I think it can be so much fun to think about, oh, how do all these things, you know, touch and how all these things compare and whatever. Also, I
Mm.
mean that people who worship Silnoctis, the night god, their buildings also have are very sparsely windowed and don't have, you know, sun skylights, right? Because it's like they don't want, specifically they don't want the god of light, Aloris, watching what they're doing. You know,
Yeah.
they want that privacy, they want that secrecy, so they can do their bad deeds unseen by the gods.
Mm. Yeah. Because no one wants to die in the light and then just make their way up to the lights of heaven just to be judged but based on
Yeah.
their actions. Like what?
No, I
What is
want to be
that?
judged by my wealth.
I worked for that, damn it. You know how
Yeah.
many people I had to kill to get that rich?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we talking about how those demiplanes worked. Like
Yeah.
what is it like to go to Silnoctis's heaven, quote unquote? And it's like, well, if you're rich, it's awesome. So it's like the real world. If you're not, it is awful. So you become a slave for
Yeah.
all eternity to work for the rich people. You know, so
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
fascinating differences between the two, and yeah,
Yeah.
so big impacts.
Definitely. And like the fact that you could still indulge in all of the same sinful things that you could on earth, like sex, drugs, and like as much alcohol or meat that you want up in
Yeah,
Noctis's realm, as long as you had the money for it. It's like, you know, that's enticing for some people.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
The pleasures of
um
life.
so I think another thing to look at is, so that's kind of like, why would a mortal worship a god? But let's look at, why would a god want a mortal to worship them? What do they get
Mm.
out of it?
That's a really good question. I mean,
So it's just a popularity contest? Is that why they want worship?
I mean, I think it's
Is
definitely
it followers on Instagram?
yeah. They have a little like popularity meter. If you get like the
It's
more
like,
prayers you get, the more likes you
God
have.
look.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, look how many, oh my me, look how many followers I have.
There was just a war, and oh my god, Groomsh is like just basking in it right now. That cocky bastard. He looks so good. Damn it.
Yeah. So something I've done is like God's power and their access to divinity, right? Their access to their ability to do miracles and to grant those base level boons, right? Like,
Yeah.
it all comes from worship. So they get power, they get literal power from worship. Someone pledging their allegiance to a god and saying, "I will worship you. I will give you my worship. I will follow you. I will do your rituals. I will speak your name." There's a big thing about gods. I don't know where you can find it. I think it's in the DMG, but there's a big thing about gods of,
Mm.
when you speak their name, stuff happens. So it's like, you shouldn't say bad gods' names, because you literally evoke them and they can now see you and
Oh.
what you're up to. So if you're like, yeah, we're trying to kill Grumsh and we're going to use this, and then suddenly Grumsh is now aware of what you're up to because he's now listening for the next hour. He
Wow.
has access up. That's like a thing. It's like a part of the rules. I think, I don't know. I was
Oh.
watching
Very
this
much he who
YouTuber.
shall not be named, like Harry
Exactly,
Potter.
and it gives a reason of why you wouldn't, or why a bad person wouldn't want to say a good god's name.
Yeah.
So they might have slaying for that god because they don't, right. Anyway, so it's like what is the purpose? And so the easiest thing I think is like, well, the more worshipers they have, they literally go up in power and they
Mm.
have more access to divinity, and their demiplane grows and they have more space, and it gives them more access to power and, like, godly wealth, not wealth in the sense of material stuff, but like spiritual wealth. Like they have literally more souls in their spirit realm, their demiplane, their heaven, their hell, whatever it is that they've created to keep their souls. It literally has some sort of purpose.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that being like, I think that definitely does make the most sense, as in, like, it can be a great explanation as to why you don't, if if the gods are omnipresent
Yeah.
and if they're always there, why certain gods may show up less. Like if you have in your lore that there are elder gods or old gods that came before the current pantheon, that their existence is now muted. Like maybe they still exist, maybe they're still living, but maybe their power has been reduced so much that
Yeah.
they're like,
They're basically just people that are immortal and cannot be harmed.
yeah,
Forced,
exactly.
their demiplane has closed and they're forced to walk the material plane as just like Hercules. Like they're godlike, but they're not, their old divine selves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something that in D&D there's a thing, right? It's called like the weave. It's like where magic comes from.
Mm, yeah.
And there's like stuff that talks about the weave in the older editions. And they mention like your connection to the weave. And that how, as you grow in levels, you have more and more threads, right, of the weave to pull on to access the magic source. And in a
Mm.
way, a god is similar. And there's also this other thing of like your silver cord or something. It's like if you do a spell, I think it's called astral projection. If you astral
Right.
project, you'll see this like silvery umbilical cord connecting you to your physical body, right? So if you worship a god, it's kind of like a god can then stand in between your body and your soul and intercept that cord, that silvery cord that connects you, and then therefore gain some of the connection that you have to the weave. So
Wow.
you worshiping that god, like, literally grants access to actual power. And so for them, it's very much in their benefit to offer you certain things for doing the worship to keep that worship consistent,
Yeah.
right? To keep your faith connected to them.
Mm.
So in a similar way, it lends a literal purpose to a God wanting to answer your prayer, because it's like, well, I don't want to lose this worshiper of me, right?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And that it completely stands for why there are religious temples and places, and like maybe even just the mission of the god is go spread the word. Like
Yeah,
go like,
I was just thinking that. Yeah, like it witnessing becomes kind of a thing that God would do once they've gotten enough followers and they're starting to break into that divinity, and they're like, oh gosh, I'm finally getting powers. Nice. Like I can actually do stuff. I can actually offer value. Let's
mm.
have a crusade. Let's really pump these numbers up, baby.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
let's turn the few into the many.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. So they might run a crusade through the Badlands where no one really cares about those particular worshippers, because they're all, slaves and prostitutes and
Mm.
beggars and murderers and all that stuff. And this god is like, no, 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 we you're gonna join us or die. And,
Ah, wonderful.
running their holy battalion.
Yeah.
But at the same note, a god running a crusade might get counter crusaded because another god doesn't want to lose power by having you
Yeah.
convert their followers, because it
Thus,
literally hurts
religious
them.
war.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. But
that
also,
is so
bad
exciting.
gods being worshipped is literally bad for everyone. Right. So that's why it would make sense that evil god worship is illegal almost everywhere. Not because it's like, well, because I'm good and I don't like bad. It's like, no, no, no. If we let people worship Grumsh, like that could bring about an apocalypse.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
enough people worship Grumsh, he's going to have enough power to reach into our material plane and cause destruction, mass
Mm,
destruction. You know, like
yeah.
it is in everyone's best interest, whether you care for, Palor or not, to worship, to ban that kind of work. Even if you don't want to worship the gods, if you think the gods, are selfish and just in it for themselves, and you don't care for the gods, and you want to be your own man and make your own destiny, you still shouldn't let people worship evil gods because it's literally not in your interest.
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like it also helps build really great villains because then the evil gods know this. They know that they're shunned. They know that the
Yeah.
only way that they can really develop their power is
And it
through
makes sense why
hyper
cults.
fanatic people. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's is this where cults come from? Because it's like, well, we have to worship in secrecy. We have to do this stuff because if people find out, and it's like, well, why would someone want to worship Grumsh? And it's like, well, because Grumsh might give you, a +3 to your strength.
Yeah, like an actual immediate boon that makes you
Yeah.
better than other people or more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, worship me and I will, bring about a plague to to your greatest enemy or something like that. Like
Yeah. If
I
yeah,
will
no, if
sicken
that's
your
what someone's
foe.
after.
I will, kill kill your mother-in-law, and I will, use her soul to empower you. And it's like, yeah,
Oh my god.
because it's in his best interest as well. He's not granting you power for fun or because he cares for you. He's doing it because you worshiping him and you caring for him is directly in his best interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
Oh,
that would make sense of why those gods then wouldn't also just kill off their worshippers willy-nilly. It's like, well, why would you trust your evil god? And it's like, because he needs me alive and worshiping him. My faith is less impactful in his demiplane at that point. My connection to the material plane is lessened, and my connection to the weave is all but disconnected. And so I'm still worth something, but I go from being worth hundreds of dollars to being worth cents. And
yeah,
so killing off your own worshippers is not a great idea. So if we're going
definitely.
to do human sacrifices, we're not going to do it within the cult. We're going to kidnap villagers.
Oh man, that reminds me of. Oh boy.
No Sith religions here.
Yeah.
It is not in our best interest.
Yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
need to kill the Grandmaster to become the next Grandmaster. That's just bad math.
Yeah, that's just less followers and less
Yeah.
power.
Also gives the Grandmaster reason to not properly
Not raise
train his
any other.
subordinates.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
It's just yep. No,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm just gonna stay grandmaster. Like
Yeah.
that's so funny, man. So like with all these gods kind of painted out and present, then like
Well, I mean, hold on. So, okay, so they could want the worship, right? But gods also have other things, right? So, like
mm,
a god of trickery might want to just seed chaos. He's not really interested in gaining followers because he doesn't really care about the divine power.
right.
He just wants to see chaos. He doesn't want to see the world burn, but he just wants to see people just be frustrated and aggravated and annoyed, right? So he's
Or
just
insane,
out.
like Tharzadun, the god
Yeah,
of madness. Like he just
exactly.
literally wants things to be insane.
Just drive you nuts.
Yeah.
So it's like those gods, right? They're not necessarily trying to grab a lot of followers. So you're not going to necessarily find a god like the god of madness is not necessarily going to have a temple and worshippers,
Yeah.
right? His temple might be a madhouse, right? Something someone else created
Yeah.
to hold his quote unquote followers, right? But so he's not really trying to amass worship for divine power. And if you're like, well, do evil gods want unholy power? No, it's all divinity. Evil gods and good gods, they both are connected to divine. Divine is just like godly energy.
Yeah.
Or like the god of Vecna might also not really care for your worship, but he just wants information, right? So he might
Right.
have lots of spies and that are kind of followers in a sense, and they want information from him, and he will trickle information to them as they trickle information to him, and it's like a quid pro quo kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Or a
Exactly.
god of order, and just trying to make the world balanced because they just can't stand. They just have the ultimate OCD, and they're just like, I cannot let this world, fall out in disarray. So I think of those things as well when thinking creating your pantheon. What does your
Hmm.
god want? Do they want just worship, just because they're just trying to gain more power,
Hmm.
or do they really care about their domain? Right? Like, is it
Yeah.
is like if they're the god of light, like, is it are they really they just want to create as much light as possible, or like they want, it's like, what does that look like? What are they after? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it
Yeah.
just trying to become the main worshiped god? Maybe not always, right? Of course, it's great to have followers because you need a certain number of followers, right,
To
to be
have
able to,
power. Yeah.
yeah, to have that connection to divinity. But like, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, actually, to build on that point, I think you mentioning like the god of light. If you're building your own pantheon, I think it's fun, especially as a DM, to kind of get creative with it and think like, you know, there are a lot of like the gods that you find in the DMG are a really great basis for you to start with, but no, in no way do you need to feel limited to those. Just kind
Yeah.
of think about like what you want your gods to be gods of. Like they can
Mhm.
be of light, like a physical manifestation, or they can be like a matter of morality. They can be like a god of justice or like a virtue.
Yeah.
But it could be like as silly as like a
The
god of
god of
carrots.
thunder.
Yeah,
God of carrots.
or like the god of mead or something like that. Yeah.
I am the god of green.
I just really love the color. I think that there are a lot of different uses for it. It's really nice.
And they pin.
Speaking of mead, why don't you go ahead and give a little mention to our sponsor?
Yeah, now for a moment, let's talk about our sponsor, Bearded Barrel Brewery.
Ooh.
Bearded Barrel Brewery. Bearded Barrel Brewery is committed to never magically flavoring their beverages, never using magical aging processes, just traditional dwarven brewing done right.
Mm.
Actually, supply a lot of the drinks in this tavern from Bearded Barrel Brewery.
Oh man, and they're good. And
Yeah.
they get you really drunk.
They
Those.
have great meads and ales. They have a few beers that are okay, and
Mm.
they've got fantastic spirits. Their their rum is just really full of flavor. It's
It's
you know they
incredible.
they age, actually not in wooden barrels, but they have these kind of porous rock that's deep in these old
Oh,
old mines, and
wow.
they fill these giant reservoirs with mead, and then they cap them off in these mines, and they'll leave them there sometimes for 60 years, 50 years, 100 years.
That's what it
um,
comes to dwarven wine because they live, or dwarven spirits. They live so long that the aging process can just go on and on.
yeah, but also there's like, Bearded Barrel Brewery is a family run business, and it's been
Oh,
owned by the same family of dwarves for the past, I think, 17,000 years.
wow, incredible.
They've rebranded a few times, but
Oh yeah, it's just it's the way of the road. It's like when people say like from 19 like 21 or
yeah,
whatever, and it's like
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, it was exactly the same back in 1921. Of course,
yeah.
this is like 16E. Uh,
Cocaine cola.
yeah, maybe a little bit different changes to the recipe. I'm sure this mead is a lot less stony, a lot less gravel.
That was really more of a shipping thing and just made the bottle flavor.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Right. You could
they're
technically
safe.
sell more alcohol if you had stones sitting in the in the barrels.
Mead rock.
Ah.
Um, yeah. So,
Hmm.
what is the god? A god of
Yeah.
mead.
Yeah, no, a god of mead. I think that having alcoholic characters praying to a specific god, all about like very Dionysus, the god of alcohol and spirits,
Mm,
and
yeah,
like
so always
having
drunk.
that kind of party connection,
Yeah,
um, is something that's really fun. And
yeah. Throw in
like,
minor gods. Yeah, you can have a ton of minor gods
mm,
that just do a specific thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm the god of locks.
yeah.
It's like, well, you haven't been around all that long, huh? Right? Locks haven't always
This is a
existed.
pretty new invention.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm new to the whole god thing. It's pretty
I'm
neat.
the god of guns. I was created when the first gun was forged, or maybe I inspired the first gun to be forged.
You see, like all the other gods, like giving him noogies because he's so young and new to the game. Ah, look at this guy.
Yeah.
I
So
think
you
this is
can have
great.
a god of all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be like the god of war,
Yeah,
um, or of the ocean. It could be like just the god of water.
yeah,
Um, and also feel free to mash up your gods to be like, you know what, I don't want, like, for my campaign, it's like I don't want 12 or 30 different gods that have all these different things. I'm just going to take all of the roughly good things and smush them into one god, and all the roughly bad things smush them into another god,
yeah.
or four or three or whatever works for you, and just kind of condense, or
Mm.
the opposite direction and spread
Sure.
out to hundreds of gods,
Yeah.
where rather than Palor being the god of the sun and agriculture, he could just be the god of the sun or agriculture.
Yeah. You could go the Shintoist route where it's like, I'm the god of this hill. This
Yeah,
is my hill that I watch
yeah,
over, and some people worship me, and whenever they roll down the hill, I make sure they don't die.
yeah. It's more of like a spirit connected to that hill, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, of course, you would call it a different thing. It's not
No, no,
necessarily
no.
a god.
You can call it a god. I just feel like, okay, it's a god is all right. It really devalues.
Then you have like the god of the sun. Like, I don't really know this guy. Like, I don't
Like,
think we should
can
call
he
him.
really come to the god, talk?
Do we
The
have to
god
have him
communion?
in like our Sunday meetings? Like,
I
this is.
just feel like, does he really? I mean, come on. Guy's the god of missing socks. He's got 3 followers.
Hey, I grow more powerful every day.
How many of you are missing a sock? Hmm?
The gods all check their feet. Damn it.
It's like, no, he's right. When I did my laundry last week, I couldn't find the sock. I had 2 socks with polka dots, and now I just have the one.
Yeah, there's so much fun that you can like the comedy that you can put into it too. You can make it really fun and enjoyable
Yeah.
that way. So here's I have a question, like in terms of like gods and religion, because in D&D we have this religion skill, right? I feel
Mm,
like that's very often underutilized when it comes to D&D.
yeah.
Like whether it's been campaigns that I've played or campaigns that even that
Yeah.
I've run, I think making it what I often use the religion skill for is either like as a player when I want to connect directly to a patron or a god of mine for
Mm,
some guidance, or if I'm like trying to bring a soul to rest or ease, uh or like maybe doing a practice, then I'll use the religion. Or if it's knowledge of another religious creature, like knowledge of a god that maybe not everyone knows, like a
yeah.
hidden god.
I think religion is underutilized for sure, and I think you can definitely make it like, oh yeah, if you roll, a 22 or above, your god might answer your prayer, with a one word or maybe a sentence, or perhaps, an angel will come to you in a
Mm,
dream, or there's some, they'll make contact with you, give you some guidance, give you some whatever,
some
especially if
clairvoyance,
that
yeah.
god has, some invested interest in you, right? So it's like they do want to help you. But your god might also feel like, well, I don't want to do too much for you, because they feel like, it's messing with your personal growth or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? So I think you can definitely use religion that way, and I've done that myself. So it's like, okay, you're playing a monk. All right, well, you're trying to meditate. Roll me a religion check.
Mm,
Now, I think that it really depends on what the player is excited for, because
yeah.
you could have a druid who has no intelligence modifier. He's got a +0 to intelligence, and he's not proficient in religion, right? But Melora is his god, and Melora is a god of the wilderness. And it's like, well, why do I need to roll a religion check to connect to my god? Can I do insight, or can I do perception,
Nature.
or nature, yeah, or survival? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something that would make more sense, and I think that's fine. Yeah, I think, what makes sense should connecting with, a god of knowledge, like
Hold on, what do you
Arathis.
Arathis.
Erithus, it might be an Arcana check instead of religion. I
Mm,
think religion can definitely makes a lot of sense, and I think that you can roll religion like specifically, for connecting with a god. Like, oh, okay, you're praying. Roll me a religion check to see if your god hears your prayer. And I think that, really all of the knowledge checks, intelligence based
yeah.
checks, are kind of underused, and so maybe. But I just
uh,
think,
yeah.
if your character is wisdom, a wisdom religious person, which wisdom and religion are often associated. A
Yeah.
knowledge is more of the science side of the world. Wisdom,
It's
so
learnedness, yeah.
I think whatever works, whatever's fun for the gameplay. I wouldn't recommend as a DM being like, no, you have to use knowledge religion, and then the druid just feels like, well, I'm never going to connect with my god then, because
Oh, that's rough.
I got a -2 to my intelligence.
Yeah, yeah.
It's getting
Like, are
worse
you
by the
saying I
second.
can't connect to my God because I never studied a book? There are no books in the wilderness. This is
It's a
some.
matter of faith. I don't need to know what I'm talking about. I just gotta feel.
It's about the feeling
Yeah.
deep inside you. Mm.
Um. Yeah. So I think another thing you can look at is, what are the relationships between gods? Do they hate each other? Are they neutral? Do they work together? Are they
Mm.
lovers? I think.
Ooh.
Um. Like Zeus and his and friends. That pantheon had all kinds of weird stuff going on with their
Zeus and
kids,
friends.
with them
uh,
having children with each other, and with
yeah.
animals and people, and mostly that was just Zeus doing that. But it's like
It's true.
that kind of stuff. I don't know. Didn't Loki give birth to a wolf or something? Uh,
Oh wow, that's I have no idea. And
yeah.
Loki's a
So I
man.
feel like, yeah. Well, gods.
That's all you gotta do
Gender
to
is,
explain
it's less of a divine thing. It's more of a mortal thing. Gender.
it. Right, right. Of course.
Yeah. So I feel like, what are their relationship to each other? I think that's really cool. So for my campaign with Aloris and Silnoctis, they're sisters.
Mm.
They are twin sisters. The god, the creator god that created all the gods and stuff, Eos, right? The great and powerful Eos, the
Yeah.
father of all gods and creator of all creation. He, or them, they produced Silnoctis and Aloris together, and told them to work together in a way that they both misunderstood. And Silnoctis believes that she'll make her father proud if she can shroud the world in darkness and blot out all the light. And so Aloris believes that she'll make her father proud if she can, scare away all the darkness and cover every inch of everything with light.
Yeah.
Um, so it's up to your interpretation what who's right and who's wrong.
Uh-huh.
So I think those kind of things are interesting. They kind of make a yin yang in each other in that sense, and both of them would be afraid of letting the other gain too much power, right? So like, what are the relationship between the two?
Ah.
And I think if you have a god of the sun, right, and they're gaining power, I think it'd be interesting if you can do something like make the day longer. You know,
Oh man, yeah. Like have it be like directly visible what it is that's happening due to like I love having like if you have like a quest where you're helping a certain god and then like yes, there's an actual physical representation or like
yeah,
maybe you fail a quest, like your quest was to help like defeat the god of undeath and like his like patron got away or something and then you just like while you're traveling you just see more and more undead showing up like
yeah.
people are starting to set up barricades or whatnot or like towns or like yeah no did you hear about Ravensvale all undead now every one of them what yeah
It's like that's crazy. Wow. Oh, you're undead now.
what
Brains.
yeah or you could even make it that like if a god of undeath is powerful enough the undead that are created are more and more like
Intelligent.
yeah exactly like they
Yeah.
just
Oh no, I've been bit by a zombie, and then like his intelligence score goes up by 2.
like whoa really what I've been doing it all wrong
It's like, are you gonna eat us now? Like, I'm not really hungry, but I mean,
do you want me to
I don't know. I guess I could go for a bite. I guess. I mean, are you offering?
no, that makes it so much better though, too, because like if an undead, like a god of undeath, starts like converting people, but still wants to be a powerful god, they're gonna convert them so that they're knowledgeable enough to still be connected to the weave and still be worshippers and to like be their own
Yeah.
people.
Look, if you don't worship me, you're gonna rot. Okay. So
yeah.
yeah,
Whoa, whoa, hey, you already turned me.
yeah. I think that's definitely a cool way to incorporate gods and their impact in the world. Another thing is what happens when you lose or gain the favor of a god, right? So let's say you didn't worship any god, and then you choose to worship a god. You do the ritual at a temple or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What things should you expect to experience by gaining that god's favor, or what are the consequences for leaving the faith or whatever? You
Yeah.
break one of the tenets.
Mm.
It says, "Thou shalt not kill the unarmed," and you finally get up to the BBEG, and he's like, "I know you're a worshipper of Paylor," and he drops his sword. Arrest me. And you're like, "Ah, oh, we really need to kill this guy." He keeps like,
He's just
"How
gonna
dare
get
you use my
out.
faith against me?" And then you kill him anyway, and he's like, "Ah, I've screwed you, even though you win. I still win."
Yeah.
And then Paylor is like, "I'm sorry, child, but you broke the tenant," and strips you of 15 levels.
No! Oh my god.
My paladin levels.
And then you get to replay the character in a different campaign as whatever the what's it called the Oathbreaker Paladin.
Yeah, I guess.
Just pocket that
so
character.
I think technically rules is written. Paladins can't lose their powers. Clerics can.
Oh,
Similar with warlocks. You're a warlock patron. I don't know if it's literally a written rule, but my understanding is a patron of a warlock can never revoke the power that's granted, and same with paladins. The oathbreaker thing I think with paladins is more about like the paladin themselves kind of self manifesting their power because they broke their own oath. I don't know. I'm not
gotcha.
sure.
And then they make an oath that is the opposite of their oath or their new broken oath or whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's It's not literally an Oathbreaker paladin is like a god. Because if a god was taking their power away from an Oathbreaker paladin, then they should just be powerless. They're
Yeah.
not. They
Yeah.
have powers.
That is interesting. I think I personally need to look into that more because I don't grasp it fully. I don't really know 100%. But it's something to consider for your campaign as well. If you know,
Yeah.
or if you are a paladin, if you want to play one.
Yeah. Another thing is, are gods killable? You know,
Ooh.
can you kill a god? I think that was something I did um, for Aloris. So in the history of my D&D campaign, is Aloris has only recently risen to power once again in the last 1,000 years, which is a long time, but the history went on for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
Aloris used to be very powerful god in the old days, but then an evil god waged a war, a kind of a hidden secret war where they carefully infiltrated temples and things like that and started twisting people and getting people to disenfranchise and spreading misinformation. And people were
Whoa.
resigning from her faith left and right because of lies, right? Like, Aloris did not save this baby. Why would she do that? Why would she forsaken this child? Is she too lazy? Has she
Yeah.
become too powerful? Does she no longer value us as individuals?
Yeah.
Right. um and then also just killing worshippers of Aloris during
Oof.
the night, where she's like unaware that it's happening, right?
Mm.
And then she comes back in the morning and 500 more people are dead, and it's like, what? How did? And at first it's like, anyway, so it was like a thing where rather than attacking the god directly, they killed all of her followers, and it became like a Holocaust kind
Yeah.
of situation where it's like our
Oh,
motivation
terrible.
is to kill all these followers so that we can weaken the god. And it's kind of a double-edged problem for the god, because it's like, well, I'm losing power, and therefore it becomes harder to protect my remaining followers, and then I lose more followers because I've lost so much power, and it just keeps, you know,
Spiraling. Oh,
yeah,
terrible.
and to the point that she had no followers and was just a demigod walking the material planes,
Oh.
and slowly rose to power again. Anyway, so I think those kind of things are cool. To how can you kill this god? Well, maybe it's um, a a bigger game plan kind of a thing.
Yeah. Maybe it's not so much actually slaying the god itself, but like
Yeah,
causing them to fall out of their power. Like if your party is trying to take down like the god of madness, then like slowly going out and trying to like either slay people who are beyond help or like
no, how you weaken the god of madness is you give therapy to people.
yeah, exactly. Like you just become a traveling party of therapists that, like go from place to place where like people
Yeah.
are like insane, and then you're like, so what moment do you remember from your past that really started all this? Like,
Yeah, there's like a guy who's like, I have like this incredibly severe anxiety, and it's like, here, man, smoke this silver weed.
and then and Tazadun is like, no, I had him.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
so fun. Definitely things
Now
to
we can
to
kill the
consider.
god of madness because we have healed all of the sick. Oh man,
That's fun. That's a fun idea.
I am the god of syphilis. We're just gonna cure all the syphilis. No.
We're gonna shut down the whorehouses. We're gonna create a comprehensive medical insurance plan for everyone in the kingdom. We're gonna make sure that people who have it are marked.
We're gonna mass produce wands of cure disease. It's going to be so ubiquitous that people will have more wands of cure disease in their home than spoons.
It's gonna be like brushing your teeth.
Stop. Okay. What do you want?
I'll do anything. Just let me continue to be an STD. I'm just trying to keep people from having unprotected sex.
Just trying to punish those for having fun.
Good old days when sex was sacred.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much a big thing about gods. Think about how things work. Like where would a temple of light be? And it's like, well, it might be on a mountain. Maybe it's like in Alaska, right, where there's like almost never, like it's like 20 24 20 23 hours of day. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like somewhere that there's naturally a ton of light, you know or there's like an aurora borealis at night, right? So it's like, oh yeah, the temple, the main temple is
Yeah.
there.
Maybe
Or
they like trap light in crystals that shines through the night and then like absorbs light during the day. So
yeah,
yeah.
or a god of I don't know, like fire might have a temple in a volcano, or near a volcano, or the temple is the volcano.
Maybe the temple to Lolth, the goddess of spiders and lies, is in a spider. Maybe.
What?
I don't know. Yours were in cool places. I'm just trying to come up with one over here.
A temple shaped like a spider?
No. It is a spider. The temple is a spider. It moves around. It's a giant spider.
Okay, sure. Yeah, maybe the god of freedom and doing what you want whenever you feel like it. God of freedom of choice might have a moving temple, like what do you call it? Nomads, right?
It's just a hippie van. It's just like a Volkswagen van traveling through the kingdom.
Yeah.
Sup, dude? You want some silver weed?
Yeah. Bunch of gypsies.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love a gypsy god.
Yeah. So those kind of things can make gods really have, a divine impact on your campaign. It can really make the campaign feel, the world feel more real. And it can be an easy place to start if you're like, oh, what kind of culture are people going to have in this area? What are the things that people are going to say? What kind of expression? It's like all of that stuff. A lot of that stuff comes from faith, and real life. It's like that. Why do we say "bless you" when someone sneezes?
Yeah,
because of religion.
That's there for a reason.
Yeah. Why don't we murder each other? Because of religion. For the most part, it's kind of where it started.
And as a player, if you're aware of the pantheons of gods, and maybe you have one you're devoted to, think about ways that your character practices their religion. Maybe the way that they view other gods in other places and other people's practices.
Talk to your DM. If there isn't a god, if you're not the one making the world but just playing in it, and you're like, man, I'd really like to have X relationship with a god, or I'd really like this thing, like something we said really stood out to you, I'd say, like, talk with your DM and be like, hey, can we change a god, or can we introduce this god into our campaign? I really would like, I think this would be really cool, or whatever. And I think most of the time DMs are happy to, when you bring more to the table.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I'd love to keep talking, but I gotta run. I need to make it down to the river and toss in a coin. There's a god of free flowing finance and luck. If there's a river connected to one of her temples, and I go and throw in a gold coin
do you
every
do this
night
every
before
Thursday?
midnight. No, I do it every night before midnight.
No wonder I get cravings for more meat at midnight every night. You bastard!
Yeah, well.
Oh well.
So I gotta go do that. So can't have you in here alone.
All right. I guess I'll go see if our traditions are still going on in my temple. They usually go all night, so I don't mind if I show up drunk. I mean, they might mind, but I don't care.
May the god of celebration and party watch over you.
Thank you. All right.
Roofie.
Roofie, the god of celebration and substance.
Chaotic evil.
I'm out of here.
May he spike your drink.